Please, Tara, can you just...
Okay, I take the music. We're unmuted. Welcome everyone to Mondays with Tara and Andre. We're just getting sorted out. Somebody we know wanted to have their guitar here because they felt like we needed some intro music. Dun, dun, dun.
I think it might be in some ways kind of like my security blanket. Believe it or not, even though we're dirty old whores and we've been at this for a while, still at time get a little bit nervous or whatever, anxious. Like, what are we going to say? What are we going to do? Is it all going to work? Is the technology going to come together? So,
I mean, last week we had a whole. Well, I'll take this off and now we can. Hey everyone.
Hey, hello.
Welcome to Mondays with Tara and Andre. Please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from and if this is your first time or second time or that sort of thing.
Welcome to Live on Mondays with Tara and Andre. It's like as if you, congratulations actually, by the way, for surviving the weekend. I think that's how it could start. Congratulations, you made it for another week.
Well, I love Mondays. Do you like Mondays? I'm a big fan of Mondays.
Yeah, I like Mondays because eventually they bring another Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
No, the week is good.
And if you haven't already, so we can see who's talking to us in the chat, you can make sure you give StreamYard permission to see your name or not. That's fine too. But if you call you Facebook user until we go off the broadcast, that's why. So
we're live right now?
We are live.
Right.
We are live.
How do you know we're live? Where is it?
Because it says right there, live. And there's 3 people on right now and growing as we talk. So growing.
Hi, Mom. I'm growing.
Well, we are finally reunited.
When you have a son, I guess they never stop growing. Potentially.
Or they don't.
Hey,
happy Monday to you.
Facebook user.
Hello, Heather in Cincinnati.
Oh, hello, Heather in Cincinnati. Yes.
Hey.
Glad to have you joining us.
One of our special guests.
I'm
sure it's the same Heather. Yeah. So today's topic is the 5 ways to...
Could there be another Heather?
I don't know.
So today's topic, 5
ways to reignite the fire in your long-term relationship.
At least 5 ways.
Well, there's at least 5 ways. We're going to talk about 5 ways.
And we might not get to all of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said, right?
Yeah.
A lot to be said. So if we don't finish it all today, that's okay. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
It's about the journey. I don't think we're actually going to get it done today because we do have to keep this to half an hour today because we both have things going on. And so let's jump in. So
half an hour seems like a long time in some ways, right? It was an hour that we put it, but for people who have some attention issues, no names mentioned, half an hour can already seem like...
So you wouldn't listen to us for a half an hour?
Well, for us, maybe I would make the exception. I'd try and listen. I'd try and be an active listener so that I listen to understand.
That's awesome. So we're broadcasting this live in our Let's Talk Polyamory group and on our YouTube page. I think it's important to say that reigniting the fire in relationships is more than just about people who are polyamorous. This is for anybody who's in a long-term relationship.
Yeah, sure.
So whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, swinger, new to open relating, whatever. I think it's something that comes up in all relationships.
Right. Is it fair to say that the model we'll be using when we're talking about this is, however, primarily for kind of like a coupled model as opposed to being
partner?
Solo and poly or in a polycule or something? Is it? Because some of the things we're going to talk about, like when we talk about going away and then coming back, for example, that's with a one-to-one model, right? I mean, it could be used in other cases, but for argument's sake, for examples.
The examples I think we're going to use are for partnered situations where you have someone who you're in a long-term relationship with and partnered with and possibly nesting with or not. But I mean, I think some of the same principles though apply to soul. It's just a little bit different if you're if you practice solo polyamory.
Right. Okay.
Because some of your issues may be more around seeing the person rather than being apart.
Right.
Depending on what your partner's relational identity is. Like if they have a longer term relationship where they're nesting, then it could be a situation whereas the person who's solo polyamorous does not get enough time and they want to have more time together. So anyway, let's jump in. So, I think when you have a long-term partner or people, when we grow up with these ideals of being partnered with someone, getting married and that sort of thing, we have this idea that our person is going to be both our best friend, but also like our erotic partner. But I think the thing that, we've learned and the research shows and that probably we won't experience in our own lives, is that these two things can push against each other.
At times, yeah, they can.
Yeah. So on one hand, you want that place that feels secure. You have the love, the familiarity, the predictability. It feels like your secure haven and your safe base, secure base, safe haven and secure base.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you want, like when you first meet someone, the excitement, unpredictability, the surprises, and that sort of thing.
I want to just clarify for a second what we mean by the safe base.
Safe haven and secure base.
And secure base. Secure base being what? A place from which, well, just like it sounds, right? As a place from which we might be able to launch from. We feel secure that this is a good relationship and we feel comfortable in it, and we can launch from there like a spaceship base, right? We go from there. Yeah. And then where do we come back when we've done our journey? We want to come back to a secure haven, right? Yeah. We want to feel as though we're well received in it. We're able to reconnect. We feel secure in that sense, right?
It's like those are kind of the principles which many say are around secure attachment, that you can have that safe haven and you can have the secure place. So like the safe haven, if you have issues, things come up, someone to talk to, someone to support you and that sort of thing. But then the secure base being, I can go out and learn and grow as an individual, but I can come back to you and you are form that base for me. So I don't know if people have heard those terms before, but thank you. That was a really good way of
But I think it's important to recognize that we can have this, or we might also identify when we feel as though we're not quite having these things, right? That we might feel as though, well, I've established some kind of base that does feel rather secure, but I'm not so sure that I'm going to be able to go and come back as securely, or what will it be like when I come back? Is there really a safe haven, right? So, can we help to promote and foster those things if we're feeling as though they're not quite where we want them to be? But we're going on the premise that we do have these things now, they're in place, and now we might enjoy them, right? We might use them to our benefit. So it's the idea that we might have this kind of relationship and then create ways to keep it interesting, create that secure attachment, but then also have the mystery, the longing for, the desire for, and then we come back into that.
Okay. You're totally jumping into number one. And there was a few things I wanted to say.
Say it.
I guess
drink my water.
Well, I guess you did talk about it. Like we want that safe and stable base. And that's when we're looking to fall in love and that sort of thing. That's the idea that we have from it. But like we were talking about, when you want to have desire and the fire and the excitement, it's like when you first meet, right? It's like once you get to know someone for a long period of time, it's not the same. It's harder I think people are more challenged to keep that desire and things. And that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Right. Some people said we become more familiar, and we kind of, I think, start to make assumptions, right? We assume that the person's automatically going to be this way. We think that we know them. We feel that we know them. And we might even go so far as to, at times, take them for granted or have ourselves be taken for granted. And we want to see if we can challenge that, right? Make sure that we don't just go into assumptions, but find ways of keeping that desire and fire alive.
I think when you're in long-term relationships, and I think this happens a lot to people, and it's happened to me, is you start to identify as a we rather than a me and you. And I think once it becomes a we and you become so intertwined, I think that's when you lose that mystery and excitement and desire. And I think, and then if you're in, what were you going to say?
No, but I can understand that becoming a product of, but it's born from that desire to want to be coupled, right? That we do get a lot of wonderful things from it. So it's really trying to find that balance between how do we enjoy the security of being coupled and that, but also get the excitement of feeling individuated and then being able to return back to that position.
I think because once you start adding, like, especially if you're living together, and I mean, we've experienced this more when we've been nesting a bit more, is like you get caught up a bit in some of the domestic things. And if people have children and stuff like that, it's like, we got to fill the dishwasher, we got to like clean the house, got to get the kids to soccer, whatever it is. And that kind of fills up your entire day. And then we lose touch with, the parts of our sexuality or the connection with us as individuals and erotic partners.
As you say that, filling the day up and all the things that we have to do, all those taxes that we might have on us, it's kind of like if we look at it as the economy of our relationship, right? So now we're paying to do the soccer, we're paying to load the dishwasher, we're paying, and all these things chop up our dollar. And then at the end of the day, at 11 or 12 o'clock, if there's anything left, Well, then it's like, hey, like, what about our time?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like the idea about saving, right? So we're going to pay all our bills, and if there's anything left at the end of the, we'll put it in savings.
Mm-hmm.
Very often there's not.
Yeah.
It's often suggested that we pay ourselves first, right?
Yes.
So we take 5 or 10% of that, put it into our savings, our investments, and we live off the rest. And you know what? Somehow we find a way to do it. Well, what if we prioritize ourselves this way as well, right? So we have all these obligations, but where do we fall on that? Are we putting ourselves as the primary, or are we just as valid as all these other demands?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we keep that in mind when we are allocating these times? Where are we going to fit into this? Because, sex at the end of the day is fun, but sometimes when we're tired, it's kind of like, sleep is sounding pretty good as well, maybe even better than.
Especially if you're going to be getting up, like, I have a pretty rigorous morning routine.
Sure.
And, I prioritize the time that works for me to do exercise is early in the morning, and it starts off my whole routine. And if you're going to be getting up at 5:45 or 5:30 or whatever time it is, it's like you're not going to want to be having, and you're not going to be feeling like you want to have intimacy at 11 o'clock at night. You'll be like, I need to sleep.
But see, another thing about that, and I'm glad you used the word routine, is that what happens is we have all these demands, they set our routine, we become adjusted to that, but then we might also have the idea, well, if I don't make love tonight at 11 p.m. because I'm kind of tired, I'll have it tomorrow. It's like we set this as part of the routine now. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if I don't do it right now, there's always tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And we might start then to become a little bit assuming we are taking for granted that there will be tomorroah.
Oh,
but tomorrow might look a lot like today's, where we come to 11 o'clock tonight and how about we just, and like, I'm okay too, because I'm tired too. And boom, we fall into, and we've created this routine. But it becomes in the idea that we're assuming that there's going to be, now, if you and I were not coupled, not nesting, and we were on a date, we might not necessarily think that behavior is going to be as viable or as accepted. We might say, well, wait a second, like, I'm on a date here. And if I just say, you know what, I'm kind of tired, like, let's do another day. Maybe we do, but it might also be kind of like, well,
this is our opportunity.
Right. And if you're not that interested, if you're not that important, if other things are, I understand. But is it as gratifying? Is it as wonderful? Are we living our best selves?
Well, you just made me think, actually, because part of the coaching, I do some accountability coaching for a health and fitness program. And one of the things we talk about is habits. And so, like I just said 2 seconds ago, it's like I've really fully ingrained my habit of getting up in my habit loop around getting up in the morning and exercise and being very rigorous about my morning routine. But I'm actually not rigorous about our sexual routines. That's really interesting. Yeah. Maybe a new habit is something to create.
Well, and also the consciousness of routine, right? So yes, we like certain routines. I like to brush my teeth in the morning, brush my teeth at night, yada, yada, yada. But am I doing that in a conscious decision? And do we do that in our relationships, right? Have we decided that that's how it's going to be? I come home from the end of the day, and the first thing I do is I throw my briefcase on the chair and I take off my overcoat and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And, off we go. On our first date, I doubt very much that's how our reception was. We probably stood in each other's presence. We were very close to each other. We might have looked each other in the eye. We might have felt each other's breath, and we might have wanted to lean in to have that kiss. There's that anticipation. We were present. And so can we break the routine that has been kind of just developed organically? Can we have more consciousness? Can I come home and say, you know what, before I unload all that other stuff and get into that routine, can I interrupt it and say, well, you know what, I was once present with you. I want to return to being present with you. I want to see you and be seen by you. And can we afford a 30-second hug at the door, or 5-second kiss, whatever it might be, something that's going to interrupt some of the routine that's not serving us quite as well, that's not as wonderful, as romantic, as interesting.
You're being very good at touching on a little bit of each of the 5.
But
I think what's also interesting to point out, if people are non-monogamous and they are seeing other people, so if you have a longer term relationship, perhaps if you're married or nesting or just seeing someone more regularly, and then you throw in the possibility that there's other people who are maybe not as predictable or there or present, and we're not so familiar with it, it can make that NRE, the new relationship energy that we have with them, can cause a bit of a threat, I guess you could say, or it can cause a concern in our own relationship, that something's lacking or...
Sure. Well, something is lacking. in a sense. So what happens is you and I have a relationship. It's established. I kind of know we have this routine that we talk about, right? Whether it's the actual routine or the psychic routine. And we have this thing. And then all of a sudden, there's another variable that's introduced. You start seeing somebody, I start seeing somebody. And now my attention might focus or shift or have something. So if we look at the economy of our relationship as $1 and there's 100 units, and all of a sudden I'm focusing somewhere else, it might mean that you're going to be getting a little bit less of it. And very often that will manifest in what people often call jealousy. They'll feel as though one of their needs, one of their levels of something is not quite where it once was. And we're alerted by it. There's a shift in the homostatic needle. And we say, wait, I'm getting too much or not enough of this.
Homostatic. Can you say that again?
Well, it's homostasis.
Homostasis.
Right? So it's a homostatic needle that's telling us that something is shifted. Something is up. And now I have these other new feelings. So it was once there, it might have been routine, might have been wonderful, whatever it was, but the NRE energy, as fantastic as that is, as much as we want to share in compersion, we might still feel a little affected by it. So that's where all that good stuff is going to come from, right?
What are you laughing at?
Well, okay, so now we become more aware of it. We're having a dialogue about it, but how are we now going to address these feelings? I still want to enjoy the NRE, but don't want you to feel as though you're being neglected. And you want me to enjoy the NRE, but don't want to feel as though it's coming at the cost of your receiving. How do we negotiate this? And how do we say this is what we might be wanting?
So how do we have that safety, predictability, protection, love, all those things, but also all the excitement, and have that balanced out, especially if you're consensually non-monogamous. So we want to get unsmothered and bring the desire and excitement back. So
smothering makes me think of the quote you're reading about fire and air.
Yes.
To smother fire is to take away air.
Yes.
Right. So when we are too dependent on each other, codependent, we are too much like that. Where does that come from? Well, NRE can bring some of that, but how can we tote that line where it's enough of desire that there's like missing a little bit of air, but enough air that's going to be able to let it breathe?
Yeah, fire needs air for sure. So, all right. So 5 ways to reignite the fire or keep it lit in your longer term relationship. So here's the 5 things. We'll give you the list, and then we did touch on a bit of each of them, but we're going to dive into at least one of them today. So,
and this will not be exhaustive, right? I mean, we're probably not going to get to the end, which makes me think of PIV, right? And the idea. Penis and
how did you get to that?
Well, because we have 5 points that we want to talk about in this, right? In reigniting the fire. But we might not get to all of them. And that's kind of like the idea of, sensate or whatever, that we resist the idea of just being destination oriented, that we don't necessarily always have to have PIV. We don't have to have orgasm to have a good time. We can be connected. And in fact, that delay of gratification might in some ways be kind of enticing. So we have like a little fool around in the morning, but without it being the whole end all. It reduces the expectation and pressure, but also might leave us looking forward to something in the future to want.
Right. And we don't have to have PIV at all.
No, sometimes we need to.
No, but some.
At all, ever. I thought you were okay.
No, some people, that's not a priority. That's not how
that's
they.
True. No, some people don't. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There's relationships where.
There's all kinds of relationships. And
that's not even a thing. I just want to say that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I think we have to have like an asterisk from our legal department that says, these two are not in any way, they're just who they are.
No, I get your point. You were trying to make the point that we don't have to be always destination oriented. Exactly. That was the point. Right. And you were using that as an example.
Right. So there's 5 things we want to talk about. We might not get to all of them, but that's okay. It's the process, not the destination.
All right. So the 5 things, I'm going to list them out. This is the first time we've been together in the same room in a while, other than when we had H&B on. There was 4 of us. That was a lot, and that was a great one. If you missed it, I know the sound was not awesome, but we
learned. Now we're gonna have mics. We're gonna work on it.
Yeah, who can hook us up? Okay, so number 1, have some distance, spend time apart.
Does it matter if it's quality time or
time? Let's talk about that in a minute. Hold that thought. I just want to list them out.
Okay. Number 2.
I know you're so excited today.
I'm gonna try to be present and in the moment. Number 2 would be to be present.
Yes.
So I'm racing ahead into future forecasting. I get very excited and I want to go there. So we will be present. So look in each other's eyes. maybe even get close enough to feel each other's breath. Don't get too close. It's a family show. And
is it a family show? I think it's an over 18 show.
Oh, well over 18.
Well over 18.
It's a family show. My mom's here. Hi, Mom. Hey, Mama. Bonjour, Mama. Okay, so number 2 is be present.
Yeah.
Number 3 is
interrupt patterns and routines.
That's what we were saying before. You're coming through the door.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ways. Yeah. And 4, increase sexual erotic energy. Increase sexual erotic energy. Sometimes I feel like there might already be sufficient levels of erotic energy. But okay, well, I'm curious to know.
For some people, there aren't.
Well, for some people, there aren't.
And it's a big jump. Like even just being present with, people, like with someone that they love is hard.
Yeah.
Because we've come out of the routine of like really like looking in each other's eyes and talk, you know what I mean? So this is why it's kind of like a bit of a.
Well, you spoke of sexual erotic energy. Where does emotional energy fall in that? The idea of being present? Because when I think about being present with you, I don't necessarily think about it in the sexual erotic point, more of an emotional connection for me.
That's what I mean by be present.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
be present in a number of ways.
Yeah. And the number 5 is doing something different that takes deliberate effort. Yeah. While I think it's like under increased sexual and erotic energy, you might have spontaneity in there. There's also the idea that we can't just wait to be spontaneous or to be struck by the idea of desire. So that's the meaning of that one.
So if the opportunity presents itself, wonderful, go for it. Try and be fun and gay and engaging. But if it doesn't, what can we do to create those opportunities? How can we create that? Okay.
Yeah. So let's start with the first one. And we've talked a bit about this, about having some distance and spending time apart.
So right away, when I think about that, I think about attachment ideas, right? So attachment or insecure attachment, right? Whether we are anxious or we are overly invested in it, whatever position might be. So here I am. Let's say, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I come into this relationship and I have fairly secure attachment formations, but I also have some anxiety towards getting too close or having people get too close.
No. Are you talking about you specifically?
No, some hypothetical guy that's just like me, sounds just me, even shares the same me, but it's not me.
Okay.
So I allow myself to kind of be connected in relationships. I'm attaching. And now I have this idea, well, it might be good for me to have some distance as well, or to let my friend have some distance. But it might also bring up some feelings of anxiety towards that idea, right? It makes me think back to, may I say, peekaboo?
Yes, peekaboo.
Right, so peekaboo. So that is the classic game where the object, the mother or the parent, the father, whoever it is, closes their eyes and they're gone from the baby, and all of a sudden they reappear. Peekaboo, and they're here. So what happens is we close our eyes, the object is gone, we feel a heightened sense of anxiety. Oh no, where did they go? And then all of a sudden, voila, they reappear and we feel elated. We're relieved. The tension is gone.
And we laugh, and like babies laugh and are excited.
We have that secure attachment again. There's the object. I'm attached. It's all good. Well, we're kind of recreating this as adults now. We're saying, I'm with you. I see you, but now I'm going to be gone. So the anxiety comes up. Oh no, where's my object? Where's that person? I'm gone. Can I also self-soothe, calm myself and say, wait a second, I've played peekaboo before. I know that I can leave and come back. They can leave and come back. And we are well served by that. We know that it is a survivable function. But it also, in playing peekaboo, helps us to individuate. It helps us to say, I am secure of my own feelings. So even if I feel somewhat anxious in my attachment styles, even if I'm afraid of losing them, I know that it's survivable, that I am okay. Even if they don't come back, I will be there.
Okay.
You look like you've got a lot of stuff on your mind.
No, but I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about this idea that some people, especially if you're in a longer term relationships, might think, oh, the problem with them is they spend too much time apart. But I guess it's like, it's more around, I think, your identity, around who you are as an individual and doing things as an individual rather than just always spending time apart. Like, that's not what I'm suggesting. Like, we probably like know relationships where the partners spend all their time doing other things with other friends and stuff and never see each other. So I think it's a little bit different. It's more.
Is that an avoidance?
That's more of like, I think, I don't think that's what we're suggesting. So then I was like, oh, we were talking, I was like, oh, I hope people don't think we're suggesting that if you're in a long-term relationship, like just go bugger off and do your own things. You know what I mean? Sorry, I have to get rid of this.
There's, I don't know, do people see this? So on the comments that are running on the side here, if people want to say hello, that's great. We'd love to say hello. But something just popped up that said, naked yada yada, bro, just go to website and jerk off was blocked.
I just blocked it. It's because we're broadcasting to YouTube as well. That's why.
And YouTube knows that we like to jerk off, so they send us.
No, it's just somebody like it's something, that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is not necessarily like going golfing, like not avoiding your partner or spending quality time together, but is more seeing oneself as an individual and what makes you up as an individual. Because I think that's part of the mystery when we first start dating someone. There's this person that has all these interests and things which we find fascinating. Like, I thought it was really cool when I met you, and I could tell from your body that you played hockey, and I thought that was really cool. So, I don't know, there's just stuff about that. So I didn't want to suggest that we do things together to avoid, but more to discover aspects of ourselves and not constantly see ourselves as a we. And to get more of that peekaboo excitement of returning.
But what if we do become well acquainted with each other? Does that necessarily dictate that we're going to become rather complacent with each other? So does familiarity breed contempt? If we become too well known to each other, do we have this idea that the mystery's gone? Because we were kind of having that discussion, and I brought up the example of my grandparents, how they were, they met each other in their teens and were sexually interested in each other and romantically, emotionally interested in each other until their 80s. So they knew each other fairly well. I mean, they had like a whole long life together, but they were still able to maintain that. So how could we still know each other and yet still maintain some degree of mystery and curiosity?
Well, I think that's why you want to have some mystery about your partner. I think the difference too, I've been reading Esther Perel's oh my God, what's the name of the book? I can't remember now. Anyways, it's just over there. But they were talking about how it's different. Relationships are different, a little bit different now, because objects of desire, there's lots of objects of desire closer at hand than there may have been when your grandparents were younger. So there wasn't as much candy out there to distract us.
Interesting. So while there's an abundance of this, it might actually, though, work against us, right? Because we become rather disposable. Quick, click right, click left. There's always another one behind that.
Yeah, like we have this belief we can have everything and we should have everything. And so when it's available and we feel there's a deficiency in our relationship, it can tend to draw us away.
So rather than addressing that, if there's too much resistance, if there's too much difficulty, too much consideration, we might simply then say, well, you know what, the next person will probably be easier.
Yeah.
So our relationship becomes kind of stale. I know that when he comes through the end of the door, he's basically just going to take off his coat and throw his thing there, and he's going to say hi and whatever. So what we're suggesting is we're going to break that routine. We're going to find ways to keep it fresh and new. So when there is an indication of some kind of lull or assumptions, we can make a concerted effort to find other ways to address that rather than just dispose of each other.
And part of that is keeping that mystery. That's what I believe. I mean, is it okay to give you an example from Saturday? Since you've opened the door, let's do it. Which example are you speaking? Well, people saw that I did. I mean, if you didn't see it, I did a quick live in the group because I was out in the town by myself. But there was two reasons for that. One was you had made some plans and you had a date Saturday night. And so what it was for me was an opportunity to go out and do something on my own and do something that maybe you wouldn't enjoy as much. Ooh, yeah. You went to a movie. I went to a movie that you would never see in a million years. But it was fun for me to do that. So I got the opportunity to explore the city because I just came back and go for a nice long walk and see a movie and then come back. So you weren't just feeling as though you were getting out of the way or fulfilling this first example that we should create distance, but you were doing it in a way that was serving you well. You were doing something that you might not go to as readily had you been with me, because I probably would not have wanted to see that film. So here was an opportunity for you to have your own way. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And then when I came back, what was it like?
Oh, it's quite nice. We reconnected.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you were excited to see me.
Yeah. What did you want to hear? I feel like you're suggesting something. I always
No.
like to see. Well, it was wonderful to see
Except
you.
that I was food deprived, so I was a little bit, when I came in the door, I was not doing so well. But that was so weird. But anyway.
Yeah. But no, but it felt good to see you because it was
Mhm.
the second part of the peekaboo. You had returned, and I felt as though we were able to reconnect.
Yeah, and I was excited to get
Mhm.
home. Like as I was walking back to you, despite feeling super hungry, I was also super excited to see you.
Yeah.
And also like sort of share in your, like have a compersion and share in the
Mhm.
happiness of your evening.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
That's when it works out well.
Mhm.
Mhm. Can you think back to other times when you and I might have wanted to participate in this distancing practice, but then feel as though it was not so easy to come back or reconnect, or there might have been things that made it less attainable? Can you think back to that?
Do you have a specific example? I'm thinking about, because we wrote in the notes about if you are going to detach and do something separate, if someone has a date, because I think sometimes people have this hard time when especially when they're opening up in polyamory to begin with. It's like, when their partner has a date, and what do you do? And we were talking about practicing some before care. So, detaching with love and
having something to do.
Yeah. Doing detaching from a secure base, like feeling like I'm going to go do this thing on my own. You're going to have your experience on your date, and then coming back and having some aftercare. And aftercare can look like there could be during care too. Sometimes we text each other and say hello.
Yeah.
For you messaged me to say, I could come. I could.
My date was over.
Your date was over. I could come home, and which was perfect timing. But the aftercare and reattaching, you know what I mean, was super important. And I think, and what you did differently this Saturday, like one situation, maybe this is what you're thinking of, or maybe I'm just imagining, I had come back after you had a date, and one of our sort of agreements is that if there is sexual activity in the bed, that we change the bed. And when I arrived home, the bed was not made. It was stripped but not made, or it was still dirty. And so
not dirty. Used, but not dirty.
Used.
But it was in the process of being stripped.
Yeah, but it wasn't remade. Whereas today, like on Saturday, I got home and you had already taken all the bed sheets off, put them in the wash, and remade the bed. Okay, and so that was a nice gesture. Like it was noticed.
Well, that's a good transition. But what I was thinking of while you were saying that was the idea of that aftercare. Can we reconnect? And one of the I guess one of the manifestations, one of the symptoms of the jealousy is the idea that, am I going to lose out in some way? So did you give that attention that I would normally receive to the other person? And does that make me feel, well, insecure? Where's my attention? Where's my piece of that pie? Now it's been shared with somebody else. So when you come home and you see the bed being remade, it's in a way saying symbolically, I've dedicated this attention to you. I'm realizing it. And this is a gesture to show that you're still important to me. I went to the effort to remake the bed, to show you that you're still in my thoughts.
Yeah. And you greeted me at the door with very much love and attention. And it was lovely. Yeah. I was thinking of something else and I can't think of what I was going to say.
It's always the way.
It's always the way. But I think we're already at 11:34 and we just talked about the first one.
And not even, I don't think we exhausted it. Have we? Are there things you want to touch on real quick?
About having too much or too little idea of being apart and being together. It's like a bit of a balance. And
we haven't even spoken about the idea of being dependent or codependent or independent or together. Although, there's so much to say. Where are we?
So I guess we just got to number one, is like, one of the ways of creating mystery and excitement or keeping the fire lit is having some time alone and, being not losing yourself. I think that happens in relationships. Like people say that people start to look like each other, but sometimes you start to act the same. You have the same interests. You lose the connection with your friends. You start doing activities only together. And then it becomes this thing. And then if people are opening up in polyamory, like this whole idea of disentangling from that can be challenging. And one of the first things that's suggested is like find you again.
But it's so interesting you say that about like our becoming looking like each other in a way, because I think on some level, unconscious or otherwise, we are wanting to find ourselves, right? We want to find people who have shared interests about ourselves. We like the things that we see in them because they often resonate with ourselves, right?
Right.
So in the sense, it's kind of narcissistic. It's rather understood that it should be that way.
Maybe, but then there's also the idea that opposites attract, and there's parts about people that are different than us that we find really appealing. Like you're very playful and spontaneous, and I can be those things, but I'm less so, I'd say. Wouldn't you?
At times, yeah.
At times.
Yeah, the opposites can attract, for sure.
All right, so.
May activate our feeling of not feeling connected with her. So yeah, we're just about done. But I want to say one last thing. I want to ask, rather, if I may. So let's go into a scenario. You have a date. You did well. I had a date. You did well. You went out. You found something that was of interest to you. You went out and you did it. You felt that was a good use of your time. And then you came back and were well received. You felt as though it was easy, viable to reconnect. You have a date tonight, hypothetically, whatever. And I go out, but I'm not as well functioning. I'm not quite as secure. I go out and there's not really, I can't do my thing. We're not showing my film at that hour. My game is not accessible, whatever it is. And I'm more than holding myself, wanting to be held. You're busy doing your thing. And I don't have that same level of fluidity in being able to self-soothe, to hold myself. What could I do then? So if my first choice isn't there, if my other things are there, how can I regain the knowledge of our secure relationship, of our secure attachment? How can I import that to myself, knowing that I am still secure? Do you have any ideas how we might?
Do you think I have ideas?
I think you always have ideas. That's what's fun.
Well, I mean, maybe it's simple to put it this way, but if there isn't that object of your desire that you do on your own available, it's like, can I remember instances where I felt that way in terms of your partnership? Because I think we spend time, we can spend a lot of time. Oh man.
That's right, let it go.
No, I don't want to.
Okay, so draw back on past experiences, past
like
things that we did know.
Collecting the evidence.
The positive evidence.
Yeah, the positive evidence. The evidence that supports the belief you want to have. The belief you want to have and the feeling you want to have is that my relationship is good. We are connected. We love each other. We desire each other. And then collecting the evidence and remembering instances where that happened. Your positive stack.
Positive stack. Okay, good to know. All right. We'll see how we.
But I would challenge you to find something that you can do that would be fun for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I find it easy to find things that are fun to do on my own.
Well, you're curious about everything and you're enthusiastic. You try it at least once, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Find something new, exciting to do. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, I like the idea of trying to challenge ourselves, right? Going out of our own routine, our own routine of self.
Yeah. I think sometimes people, especially if they're in polyamory, they want to, like, if their partner's having a date, then they're thinking, oh, I should have a date as well the same day. But it doesn't always work out that way. That's why I think it's good to have friends to spend time with, things to do on your own, and that sort of thing. Oh, someone wrote, who isn't excited to see Tara? Oh, so sweet. Anyway, I think that was a good one.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at there for now.
We'll leave it at number 1 and we'll get back to the other ones. So maybe perhaps our little call to action for you today is to think about what things about yourself, maybe that you could spend more time, what things that bring you joy that you could spend more time doing and that you would have fun to do on your own.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah.
That could keep the mystery alive.
I was just thinking about some of the things I'd like to do in the future, but if I bring them a little bit closer, what if I then say, well, the future is now, why don't I take this opportunity to do the things that I've been putting off?
Yeah. And it might not be it's good to practice even when your partner doesn't have a date, if you're in polyamory, right? Like, let's just go out and do our own things. Like, I went out and spent some time with a friend yesterday. Yeah. You did other things at home. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you were excited when I came back.
Sure was.
And I was excited when I came back.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy Monday. Always love to hear your feedback and thoughts and what you do for fun on your own. and how you're going to create that mystery.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Bye.
Bye.